And we're live now. Excellent. Welcome to another week of Ammonize. And this one is one I've been looking forward to. First up, my guest client this week is somebody I've actually been really looking forward to meeting ever since we arranged this show. Because, Farinaz, you've been with us every week for this show. You've been a really loyal supporter, and it's a delight to finally have you this side of the camera.
Thank you.
As ever, I'm joined also by Lee Rickler.
Good evening. I'm Lee Rickler, Point the Stairs, the company in North London, and it was rather rainy here today.
Just a bit. So, without much further ado, we've written some of your biographical information in the description, Farinaz, and you've had, let's say, a busy life.
Yes.
So, what would you describe your position as right now? Are you transitioning to a new career? Is it that, you know, it's something you've put on hold for a while and are now picking up again? How do you describe where you're at in your career?
I was all the time doing things because I had 2 children. We had to manage a revolution, and we had to, get the children going and educating and all that. Now I'm on my own, and now I can do things that I like to do. So that's the situation. This is the time that I have used the time really for Farinaz.
So one of the things I have to ask to be able to give good advice is how your financial situation is right now. You know, are you needing this business to start bringing in money quickly, or are you quite comfortable in the medium to long term, and you know you can take your time to do it right? Where are you at there?
I am not a well-to-do person. That's the thing, because I'm not in a job right now. So, but I'm not also, in this shape that I should kill myself for getting something. But if it's become successful, of course, that is also good to have,
Okay.
I'm just an average.
I'm guessing that, you know, the plans that we're looking at, it's much more bootstrapping and working it through rather than being able to spend money to buy things and invest in the business. Is that about right?
That's right. Yes.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Now, you have, well, to say it's a wealth of experience is an understatement. You've got 30 years working for the World Health Organization, working in Washington, working in all kinds of levels of healthcare, including some teaching positions. Is that still an area you want to focus in, or is it much more towards the personal, the one-on-one counselling?
You mean if I want to work in a job like?
It's more, who is your target customer? Who would you like to be dealing with for the rest of your career? Do you want to see one person at a time and do one-on-one work, or do you want to be, you know, dealing with audiences?
It's really the same, because I have done both, and the satisfaction is when you help people in any way, whether individual or group. I really want to get that satisfaction of being there doing something for others. I could not save in my life because I had to take care of 2 children and their education and everything. But I can, now use my talents, use what I can do to help others. So even when I write something and somebody writes that they have used that, I really feel good about it. So but I will listen to whatever your advice is.
Well, for the counselling side, if you remember back to the show with Mindful 360 with Craig Calvert and Manis and Victor, it's a lot easier to sell to an audience because that way they are crowdsourcing the money that you need to pay for the time.
Okay.
So to make a living from talking to people, it's much easier to do it in groups than one-to-one. Because one-to-one has a realistic ceiling of what people can afford, that unless you're somebody that Donald Trump is going to hire, isn't going to be a lot of money per hour. So generally it's group counselling, teleconferencing and that kind of thing on the counselling side to make a good amount of money per hour.
Okay.
That's one side of, I know, your interest is in counselling. Another is, of course, in your writing. I know that you're a very passionate writer. Can you tell us a bit about where that came from and how long you've been writing and enjoying writing?
Actually, I was in elementary school, and I remember that my composition, you call it, that we wrote in the classroom, mine was always taken to other classes as an example. So even though it was, about a very simple subject, and then this continued through my high school. And I have been, and also I come from a family that my parents, from father's side and mother's side both, they are journalists. They were journalists, and they had journals. They wrote. It is even in my life story in my blog about them. What happened, and it was hard when they were doing that, it was really hard because politically they could not speak their mind at that time. So it's in me, and it just comes to me. I like creative new ideas, and so I don't know how I can explain it. It's not something I have picked up, or it has been. And Farsi language is also very rich in literature, in the poetry language, in using a lot of vocabulary to actually express yourself. So that's how it has been for me. I'm sorry, did I answer the question?
Yeah. Okay, so one of the places that you write at the moment is your own blog. So let's bring that up about now. Now, Metanoia is your main blog, which is hosted on Blogspot.
Yes.
And what I'm going to do is bring Lee in at this stage to do our usual dissection and general over health check. Lee.
Right. Where do we start? Let's start right at the beginning. One good thing about using Blogger, because it's owned by Google, it's going to be very secure, and it's going to be treated. Nothing's going to get in. So you're going to be very safe and very secure. I ran a quick test just to clarify that, and the site check results came back with no malware, no website blacklisting, no injected spam, nothing like that. Totally clean. The downside of it is that it's a blogspot website. It's not really a website as such, it's a blog site. That's fine. You've got no control over the cleanliness of the code itself. There is a hell of a lot of stuff that gets put onto the page every time it's loaded, which therefore can lead to it being very, very slow to load. I ran a quick test on it. The performance grade come back at 80 out of 100. Sorry, 81 out of 100. 168 requests, which is your browser going away and pulling something off the server. So it's 168 times, taking around about 2.2 seconds to load. Really should be about half a second loading. Page size is 1.4 megs. Again, it should be at least a third of that at the most, if you can get away with that. I can understand why, because there's a lot of extraneous stuff like Google Plus followers and where are we? All the other followers about Blogspot and that kind of thing as well, all being pulled in, all their information, all their avatars, those kind of things as well. On a normal website, obviously, you wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have that at all. You wouldn't need them. Yeah, as I said, Blogger is a publishing platform. It's no problem if you're using it as a blog as such. As a company, you need to get yourself a proper website, as it were. But other than that, I mean, it's okay. Nothing brilliant about it, nothing bad about it. It's pretty much safe and secure. And for what you're using it for, which is blog writing, it's totally fine. Totally fine for that as well.
Thank you.
It is one of those things where to develop your writing as a business, you will need to change from Blogspot. You need much more control over your business than this is going to allow you. There are other free solutions which allow a little bit more customization, but to be honest, if it's going to be a business, it's usually one of those things where you would pay the minimum cost to, host a blog of your own WordPress install somewhere that would do the job and allow you to really tailor it to just the experience you want. Looking at the site as a whole, it's a blog, and it largely looks like millions of other blogs, which is fine for getting people familiar with it, but the familiarity here isn't what we're used to spending money on. Although we've got familiarity with this, we don't have the kind of familiarity of pulling out a credit card and paying for things on sites like this. So for business, this familiarity isn't really working to your benefit. Having more control over the site, having a more professional looking site would certainly go a long way towards helping you to develop this for money. Of course, it would allow you to then have sponsors and paid advertising to try and make some money that way. It's a little bit too heavy on the social stuff in the right-hand side menu.
Yeah.
And this column is just very heavy on the social things, which aren't necessarily going to translate to anything beyond getting followers. Now, that's fine at this stage, but if you want to monetize this, you've got to stop thinking of followers and start thinking of customers, and that means individually serving each person. Because while we buy mass-produced things, we always buy them on the individual basis, i.e. what it does for us, how we feel the relationship is between you, the supplier, and us, the customer. It's always a one-to-one relationship that we're really seeking. The blog itself, yeah, you've got lots and lots of content. However, one of the big problems we noted is that this doesn't seem to be very well indexed at all, if at all. It doesn't seem that Google's doing anything with this site. Did you find any cause for that, Lee?
No, I can't find any cause at all. Normally, like for example, in WordPress, you can block all search engines very easily in your settings. I'm not quite sure if it's the same with Blogspot. I would have assumed that you can't do that because it's owned by Blogger, but I'm just presuming that. But that is the main killer reason I would get away from Blogger. Is purely if you do a site search on Google, it comes up with 0 results.
Looking at you've got a lot of other places called metanoia, which are going to create confusion, including metanoia blogspot. So this isn't a name that's very good going forwards, in that there are already confusing other sources. If somebody said, "Oh, I saw this great story. It was on metanoia something on Blogspot," there's just far too many other ones that it could be. People couldn't find it from that description. Whereas, you know, if I say, "Oh, I saw this great book deal on Amazon," everyone knows how to find it. So having a unique name, and a really unique name, is a good thing. Even just on Blogspot, this isn't a unique name. And it does seem to be the one that Google doesn't have indexed as well. Now, quickly looking at the source code, this is a problem. Again, it's one that will disappear if you move to your own hosted site. But if you watch this screen here, you can see how far I'm going to have to scroll past the code. We're still on the code.
Should we go off and have a cup of tea?
Still on the code. Still on the code. This is still style sheets. This is just telling me how the fonts are going to look on the page. And we're still going with that. We're still going. And still going. And we're still going. And now we've got some JavaScript. And we're still going. You know, we're all the way down before we get to actual content. And you can see that this page just goes on and on forever. Here we go. Here's the first.
Line 609 is where the first line of code is. First line of content is.
Well, I'm seeing stress is simply resisting what is at line 738.
Ah.
Wow.
So 738 lines of code before we're really getting into content. Which I've got sites that have less than 700 lines of code in the whole page and have a good length article on them. So this is very, very, very code heavy indeed. It needs to change. There is no way that this is going to do very well in search ever, which means it will struggle to get visitors. What's causing the problem with getting indexed, I'd really kind of need to dig into with some tools, which would take a little bit longer than we've got time to do here. However, I wouldn't be surprised if William Rock, who's watching, was not digging into that with his tools right now. So it could be something that we come up with. One of the things that I remember you mentioning that you love is poetry.
Yeah.
And is there a particular language that you tend to write poetry in, or do you use all of your languages that you're fluent in?
Well, for the consumption of others, should be English, right? But I also have contemporary Persian poetry there that has been translated. Because I don't know if I write the Persian itself, if I will have any, anybody read it, unless, if I really find my audience among them. But everybody loves that when it comes out, you know, it's from Persian to English. They tell me that they love the poetry. So should I separate that?
I wouldn't say so right now, but if you were developing business as a consultant, as a counsellor, you know, in something more tangible, you'd move the poetry to one place and the business to another, and include bits of poetry that illustrated things in your work, but cite your other site for it. Kind of just a separation, but not a divorce. One thing I'm going to bring up is a site that's administered by a friend of myself and Bill Slavsky, the Passions in Poetry forums. Now, there's a gentleman called Ron Carnell who has been a friend of mine for many years. I've literally known him in this industry since the late 90s, I believe, where I first encountered him on Jim Wald's forums, one of the oldest of all webmaster forums. He is the administrator of Passions in Poetry, or piptalk.com. And this really good forum is filled with writers of all kinds, but particularly poetic writers. And the forums allow you to share poetry and get critique from other, you know, passionate people about poetry. To talk about some of the actual technical issues of poetry. You know, how to get the stanzas right, how to get the tempo and feel, or grammatical issues, anything like that. There is a wealth of free advice in these forums, and it is one of these things that I would really say can help you with all kinds of issues, from publishing your poetry using HTML right through to how you know, how the poetry made somebody feel. It's a very good support group early on, so I would say that this would be a very good thing as you were moving into your own blog to take more technical control over your writing. Because I know Lee was pointing out that there were several instances where you could see in the code that you'd written your text originally in Word and then copied and pasted it into the blog, which meant that some of the formatting code from Word had got into the blog where it doesn't work, because they're different platforms.
Yeah.
And again, you know, a place like this can help you with all of those kind of issues, as well as being just a very good place for building up an enthusiastic audience of other poets. These are people who, should you decide to write a book of poetry, would be able to write testimonials and to share their experiences and that kind of thing, even write you an introduction. Plus you'll have some other people there who do that kind of thing. So that's Passions in Poetry.
You
so,
know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. Ask your question.
The thing is, I have like a bigger goal in the poetry side, because looking at the world and the troubles that we are in, and the killings, and you know, the wars and all, and every poetry that I choose, I select, it's actually from all time that is against all that. So it sometimes the question is, somebody in 13th century said that, and what are we doing now? So I like to actually make people question things when they read the poetry. So that's something. It's not just poetry for the sake of poetry, but it's poetry for awareness, I could say.
Yeah, I think that itself would make a wonderful book. I think a book about attitudes, a book about the need for peace across the world and in ourselves and in our individual lives, as well as on the global and political scale, would have a wide audience.
Yes.
and
Okay.
your ability to pull in from so many different cultures and experiences would be very, very helpful there. And I think that's something that, although we don't have a huge audience watching us right now, I think you'll find that they too would find that something that would interest them greatly. So to be able to leverage the audience you already have, that could be a very good first step. And of course, if you're a published author, it's much easier to have the credibility for counselling, for seminars or anything along those lines. So I would say that right now, while you have time rather than money, writing a book could be the very best start. And it could be that something that combines all of your experiences and all of your passions together, that is a work only Farinaz could come up with, would be something really, really worthwhile. And what you would do is, yeah, you'd talk about some of the situations you've seen, and the issues of strife and conflict that you've seen yourself and that you've dealt with throughout your career, contrasted with the poetry that you love from all periods of history, and your personal learnings, because I know that you've got a wealth of your own stuff there, and I think that book could be incredibly powerful. It's something that won't write itself, and it won't happen overnight, but I think that it's a book that would almost flow out of you. The majority of your time wouldn't be in writing the book, it would be in polishing it up, and getting it edited to the point where any publisher is going to look at this and say, I want this book.
Yeah, I'm excited. I feel excited when I talk or you talk about that. I also was thinking sometime to have a live in the studio, have a live group and talk about poetry and talk about the issues of the day, things like that. Do you think that needs a lot of money or?
I think that would be highly successful for building up a focus group and an interest point. I think you would have to do that as a collaboration with the blog. So in the blog you would, I'll tell you what's a great example. You know David Amelin's Sunday Read?
Yeah.
How he pulls many sources into a unique thought process, something to really think about for the day. I'd say instead, find 2 or 3 poems and a thought that ties those together, or a concept that brings those things together. You publish that, and then you'd have a discussion group that just in, say, 30 minutes would discuss their take on the 3 poems and what they'd got from it. And I think that could be a very interesting, particularly Sunday show. It's something that's got a spiritual aspect to it as well as a thoughtful and philosophical aspect to it, and I think that could be really, really good. I'm just going to pull up a little comment here from William, who says he loves the book idea. He says, obviously, self-publish. You can indeed self-publish. However, you tend to get a little bit more credibility for the things if you are an accepted publisher by a publishing house. So it's very easy to get an ebook out there, and it certainly wouldn't be a bad thing, but if you can actually get properly published, that's even better.
I have publications, but it is all about work. And what's that? John Wiley and Company is one of the ones that published my work in a collection of works, of course. And then WHO has published all my reports, which, of course, it's their property, but I don't know about it. How can it be used? But I always wrote very extensive reports about the health situation in the countries I was in, and they always liked what I had to say and to give. So, and then also university that I worked has published my work. I even have audiovisual aid videos in. We have like an open university in Iran, which opened with all the really extensive facilities. They send us to Open University for education, and we did everything to really. So we had self-instructional material, and each one had its own video. I was the player in the video, so I have been doing this in that. But unfortunately, everything was, what happened after, that situation, social, political situation. And but I'm not claiming anything. I'm not saying that, oh, I am this or that, but I can always learn more and become better.
One of my favourite sayings in life is, if you stop learning, you've died.
Yeah.
The learning experience. The minute you stop learning, what's the point to the rest of it? I'm going to bring up a comment by Kevin, who says, run with your passions to the maximum extent possible, and then you'll never work a day in your life. And I absolutely support this. I mean, my own career is a perfect example of that. I could have done other things, but when I discovered internet marketing and web marketing, it was just something that I adored so much that even though I had to start up this business and it was very tough in the early years, it's something I never feel is work, except for when I have a few clients that really don't get it. But most of the time, even with the worst of clients, and they're rare, most of my clients are wonderful people, that it doesn't feel like work. And you can't ask for more than that.
Work's a four-letter word.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, what you said, Julie. I love doing that. You said in conjunction.
Certainly, I think that at this stage, creating a book gives you a solid foundation for moving forwards. I think that a properly published book is the best format of that. You can make some money with an ebook, but it never tends to make huge amounts. The thing is, it's self-publishing.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, formal publishing it usually doesn't pay. The book tour and the work that you can get from the credibility of having had a properly published book is much more where the money is. It's only the book deals, i.e. you publish one book and they want 2 or 3 more, which is one of the things I think doing the poetry always gives you the ability to start a series. The first book doesn't make you the money, the second and third books make the money.
Okay.
Yassine is adding in his support for this. Let me just pull this one up. He votes for the book. You should be able to fully pour her soul, and of course the story always needs some polishing. Choose what you want to share, how it can bring another perspective into our lives, from Tehran to Los Angeles. And yeah, I think he's absolutely right. There is a huge and ready audience for the story you have in you, and for the unique combination of passions that people wouldn't necessarily grasp straight away, between somebody who's worked for the World Health Organization, has worked in education, likes poetry, and speaks many languages. Well, to a lot of people that's a confusing mix. How does that add up to something? Well, it does. It gives you a very good platform for being able to speak uniquely about cultures, issues that transcend one culture and that bring us all together in the world, which is absolutely a trend of today. You know, that is something we're all so aware of, is that the political boundaries and the borders that we used to have matter so little now. Now that we've been able to connect through the internet, person to person, across those borders, across cultures, across religions, across all kinds of divides, we've realized that what we want is less of these boundaries, less of these false walls put up between us that don't add anything. I think your book, your message could be a huge step for that kind of drive.
Wow, that's great.
Kristen is just pulling up a question here that I will quickly include. So yes, a lot of the content that's on the blog that we mentioned earlier, yeah, you know, the text is fine. The style sheets should be in external style sheets. The script should be in external scripts, but also there's just a huge amount of external links as well. As Lee was saying, was it 180 something?
160, I think, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, 160 external file calls already for a page is a lot. And a lot of that is simply the way it's pulling in the social stuff. As you know, an amateur blog, that's not a bad thing, but moving towards a professional blog, definitely that needs to come up. You know, be a lot cleaner, a lot less of the social stuff on every page, and you know, have a community corner, a supporters corner, and a small taste of things in the page, rather than, you know, trying to put everybody links everywhere. That people will find you. Yeah. So William here says his suggestion is to update the G+ about page, detailing more of what we've learned about you. You've got an awesome story. Tell more of your story in your G+ profile. And I think he's right, but I would also say with that, don't tell it all, because this is something that I do think there is at least one book and possibly 2 or 3 books in your story alone that people would be willing to pay for. So is there something you've particularly wanted to do in a career, or is this literally, you know, where do you go from here? Is there something you've most wanted to do and that, you know, you'd like to ask about, and whether it was possible?
I think that what we talked so far, it's just around that, my passion and what I like. I only was wondering that whether I need to educate myself more about website development and, you know, what was the other one that we were supposed to learn?
HTML.
Yeah, HTML. I always forget. So what is your advice about that?
In short,
I don't
yes.
know about web at all, anything.
If you are going to be in business in this century, the more of those tools you have at your disposal, the better. And at this time, where you don't have a lot of budget to be able to hire experts, you need to kind of become your own. You need to take the time to at least have the basics of those skills in place. Because the more you're able to do yourself, the more you're able to do. It literally works out like that. Definitely learning the basics of HTML and the basics of maintaining a website is pretty much critical. It is the minimum I think any professional blogger needs. It will give you a lot more skills to move forwards. However, to head towards the money, one of the things we say is, you know, first look at for a minimum viable product or the fastest path to profit, the fastest path to profit is definitely an ebook, you know, a virtual book. So learning about self-publishing, learning about the different platforms that are out there, finding the one that suits you, those are things that are very, very powerful. Now, I happen to know that Kellen Flukinger recently had a workshop with, he's created a 2-day process to writing a book. Literally, you know, he always says that everybody has a book inside them. Everyone's got the knowledge to write a book. It's just that most people say, oh, I don't have the time, or oh, that's a lot of work, and he's literally found a process where in 2 days you will put out a book. It may not be a Pulitzer Prize winner, it may not be, you know, going to win that many awards, but you will get the book out. And if you want to then spend a week really polishing it, you can do that. So I would say have a look at that. Trying to remember which series it was. I think it was Results on a Rampage, where he was discussing that. I'll include the links later on in the description for the audience. But that's Kellen Flukinger, and the idea of being able to produce a book, an ebook in 2 days, is obviously a very powerful thing for getting some momentum going. Because the hardest part is starting.
Yes.
Once you've got it going further is not so hard. So yes, I would certainly say have a go at self-publishing, possibly a test, a small test of what we were talking about as a big idea, the big book with the poems and the different cultures. You know, a taster of that you could then show to a publisher. Well, look, here's what the idea did when I published it myself with no budget, no promotion, nothing going on. I managed to, you know, sell 500 copies without any trouble at all. You know, 500 is not big bucks, but think what we could do with your publishing house. And it just is a proof of concept.
You know, Aman, I did download something that from Google, which is called Apes. Are you familiar with? About self.
Yeah, it's Kawasaki books.
That one I downloaded. Then Amazon sent me some information. I also have still have a suggestion from one of the publishers that, no, I forgot the name. Anyway, they have seen my work, and they were telling me, you know, that I should attend a workshop online with them, so that they will tell me how they can help me. So I haven't done that yet. I'm just saying that how much, you know, I know about how much I have, you know, information I have gathered, but of course it's not enough.
Yeah. One thing I really caution against is beware of people who want you to pay for information on getting published when they're talking about ebooks and things like that. Don't buy this ebook and we'll tell you how to make ebooks, because they're almost a kind of chain letter thing. There are dozens of free expert articles out there on how to publish online. You do not need to be paying money for somebody's book on how to do it. Those are, you know, it's kind of like there's a sucker born every minute. Look, I made you download this. Now you can go and write a book just like this for the next sucker. That's what they're selling, and that's not at all what you want to be doing, and it's not really what the market's about either. What you really want to be doing is looking at some of the free publishing, particularly Kindle. Kindle make it very, very easy.
Yeah.
There are others as well. To get that kind of minimum viable book out there, but it's not going to be hugely expensive. Even if it's a kind of $5 publication. Literally, you know, we're not talking, you know, a 500 page novel. We're talking, you know, a sort of 50-60 pages ebook. Is certainly a realistic thing to put out there and to show a publisher later. This shows you there is some demand for it. And also, of course, even while it's small income from an ebook, it's still something that is a huge reward in itself, to get your confidence up, to make you feel good about it, and to see that you're on the right path. Now, as you've said, you've had things published in the past, so the chances are you may have some people in your network in your past that can help you connect with publishers as well. However, many of the universities self-publish, and even the ones that use publishers, they tend to be much more the factual thing. So they could probably help you with your biography, but I'm not sure they'd be as good with the poetry, philosophy side of the book. But it does depend. It's worth asking them, because even if they don't know somebody who does it, they probably know somebody who knows somebody who does it.
That's right. Thank you.
Yassine is again adding some support for the idea. He says, Farinaz loves to write. A book is perfect, using the poetry in the words of your real life journey.
Yay!
Yes. Lee pointed out that the book you just mentioned was Ape. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I downloaded and read almost all of it. But then they say, if you decide to call this number, I haven't done that.
Raindale adds, Farinaz Parsay, there's an author on G+, Sally Sue Ember, who has published her ebooks herself on many platforms, and she may be able to offer you some assistance and advice.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
That may be of help as well. Are there particular challenges at the moment? Are there any issues that have been sort of holding you back, or is it just that there's so many possibilities, it's knowing where to go first?
No, that first of all, I have joined Google only 3 years now. So I became actually more sociable. I myself was an introvert. So, you know, I didn't go for it. So when I started really putting it out there and put it in G+, or having a blog, and all this started together. So I now feel that, you know, I'm very excited now. I feel that I can really go further. And I'm so excited with this session now that, you know, I got all the ideas, that there is so much there that I still can look forward to.
I would certainly think that the most solid product right now is tying your love of poetry to the other aspects of your life. So your life story, the interests that you have, and the poetry all coming together in writing is something that not only is a great book itself, not only is an interesting blog and possibly hangout show to talk about, you know, almost like a book club where they all read a book and then share their thoughts and feelings on it, but where you pick a few texts of poetry each week and bring them together in a theme, and how people adapt to that theme, how people take it on, I think is a very interesting thing to do. I think it's absolutely where society is at right now. I think it's spiritual without being religious. Opens it up again, cross-cultural, where people of many different faiths can come together and share that spiritual aspect without it having
Yes.
a conflict of religion. The fact that that could become not only a book tour but also a speaking tour,
Yes.
to literally, the peace that comes from poetry and the clear vision that comes from poetry, and then the contrast. I mean, some of my favourite poets over the years. I love some of the First World War poetry. Owen, of course, is one of the classics. But there was something in
Edgar Allan Poe. Yes.
Owen. There was something in the beauty of the words that came out of the horror of the situation.
Okay.
It's just so stark. When he finds a turn of phrase for the way people were choking on poison gas, but he found a poetic turn of phrase that just made you see it in a whole different way, and it just made the waste of life so apparent to me that I think the idea of peace through poetry is actually a very powerful thing. And I think the idea that poetry itself is a medicine, a health medicine for us individually and for us as a society, I think could be a very strong message and a brand for you to carry forward. And
Yes.
there's not many people carrying that kind of brand right now.
Yes. I just feel so goosebumps, you know. It is, you can say a lot through poetry that you cannot say, otherwise. And there is a lot there. There is a lot we can discover. So I'm so excited about this. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Rain adds her support for a HOA book club. The idea of sharing either books or poetry is something that a lot of writers would enjoy, and I think that would be a very good thing too.
Yes, yes. We can start with an HOA by itself and then take it further. All of us, that are there, take it there. I have a group actually in my circle group that they're all writers and publishers, or publishers or bloggers, because I group them together so we can ask them to participate.
Excellent. So yes, let's bring these things together. So the central concept of bringing together your life story, your work history, and poetry all together as one thing, joined by the poetry, if you like, joined by the passion, is certainly my recommendation, which would then effectively become your brand, your product. That has a great many different products within it, which is the book, the HOA shows, the blog, and of course the speaking engagements. It's something that you can start very simply. I would certainly reach out. You say you've already got a circle. I'd probably put together the HOAs reasonably soon, because that just gives you some of the impetus to go forwards, and that itself can reach out to people. You can use that as a message to widen your network and therefore build up the people who are going to be interested in what you're doing later, your potential readers, and also to bring you into contact with more people who can help you. So other people who know publishers or have good contacts, or that have been down the self-publishing route, that can help you in that direction. Definitely start working on a book. Don't delay this. Definitely start working on it, and particularly, that whole thing we're talking about tying all of these things together through poetry, through vision, through how poetry moves you, because that's one of the routes to yourself, to the essence of Farinaz. Is the way that poetry touches you is very akin to the way people reach themselves through meditation, or they reach themselves through therapy, or the way that we reach ourselves isn't the important thing, it's the fact that we have. In your case, I think poetry is the means, and I think sharing that with others is a very, very powerful thing. Kristen has just added her support for a book club, so you know you've already got your first 2 members right there, and I know that they'd recommend others, and I know that you've got others, so I think that would certainly be a way to go. I wouldn't at all hesitate to reach out to David Ammonize either. He is a very passionate man himself, and I think he would himself see it as kind of something that went along with the ideas of his Sunday read, as you know, a Sunday piece of poetry or something along those kind of lines. I think he would love that. I'm sure he'd like an invite to see the show. We are just coming up towards the hour, so I'm going to have to start winding us in. Lee, is there anything in particular, advice-wise, that you don't think we've covered yet that you'd like to pass on?
No, not really, because I've basically covered most of the points. In the stream, that's why I've been so quiet. I've just been busy digging around looking for some HOAs or groups or communities on Google Plus to do with authors and to do with books in general. So I definitely 100% start sniffing around there if I was Farinaz. On the business side, get yourself a business domain, get the website set up separately to the blogger. All that content in there is brilliant, but I think it needs to go somewhere else, somewhere which is more pertinent to the business itself, but catalogued as well, so tidied up, sorted out, which you want to keep. Other than that, you know, you've been speaking for 50 minutes, Ammon. That basically covered everything I can think of.
Okay, mate. Can you have a quick look on the domain checker for us? Just have a look, see if there's anything around peace in poetry or peace in prose, that kind of thing. If there's any .coms around there available, just as a quick look. But those are the kind of things, Farinaz, where you'd want to be looking. Find yourself a good domain name to be using as a central thing for this business moving forwards.
Yep. peaceinpoetry.com, .co.uk, .scot, .london, .co, .net, blah, 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 all available. Peace in Poetry, one word.
Yep.
So I'll definitely go for the .com. Get that one. Get yourself a hosting account. Probably something like 30, 40 quid a year, $30, $40 a year. Within that, you'll find a one-click install of WordPress. Install that, 5 minutes later, you'll have yourself up and running on a website. And then if you want to go, you can then go to somewhere like ThemeForest, pay $30 for a nice theme, import all of the blogger content you've got. But yeah, definitely peace in poetry. I'm just checking I spelt it right.
I'd be tempted to look for piece of prose, because there's the double meaning.
Of prose, P-R-O-S-E, isn't it?
Yeah.
I hope nobody else is just registering these. Piece of prose, peace as in P-I-E-C-E.
Yeah, go P-E-A-C-E.
Yeah. P-E-A. Yep. Pieceofprose.com, definitely available.
Yeah. So there are some.
Years.
It's one of the things that always stuns me is people say, "Oh, all the best names are taken. I can never find a domain name." The first two I've thought of, and they're both available. So you know, there's tons of great names still out there. I think Piece of Prose has a different. It's just got that level of extra thought to it. It makes people think of it a little bit more. I think that could be a very powerful thing to go forward. And prose goes beyond just poetry, so it broadens it up to all of your writings. I think that might be something that you'd want to do quickly.
Just to be pedantic, I would get pieceofprose.com PIECE and PEACE.
Just in case.
Just so you don't have to bother explaining it to everybody all the time.
Yeah. Well, Farinaz, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on this week. I hope we've given you plenty to think about.
Yes, and I loved it, and this is the first time the whole hour I talked about something that is my passion. And thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. We'll have you back next week if you're available, so that we can do the deep dive on some of the things we've discovered, and really talk about some of these things in a bit more depth. Learning code, learning, you know, how to manage a website, those kind of things we kind of touched on before, but it does strike me as something that people still want to know more about. Lee, what are you up to this week?
Where are we? I've got a hell of a load of hangouts coming up this week, especially on Tuesday. I think it's this Tuesday. I can't remember now. A special Tuesday afternoon on the UK Biz Hangouts on LinkedIn. Now you can use it to improve you and yourself in your business.
Oh, excellent. I know some people have been really sort of looking to leverage LinkedIn a bit more, so well done.
Yep. Me included.
I am on air Tuesday. I'm still not sure quite which I'm doing. There's supposed to be an Isuzu chat, but I haven't seen the event page come up for it yet. So if that doesn't happen, there will be an extra Bill and Ammons hangout. And other than that, I'll be around G+ as ever. Thank you to everyone that watched today. Thank you to Farinaz, who's been a wonderful guest client. Lee, always a pleasure, and take care, everyone.
Thank you, Ammon. Thank you, Lee.
No problem.